Have you ever wondered how some stories from history are hidden or even denied? History is full of tales of courage, suffering, and injustice, but not all of them are remembered the same way. One of the darkest chapters of the 20th century is the Armenian Genocide, which happened during World War I. Over 1 million Armenians were systematically killed by the Ottoman Empire. But here's a question. Why have so many people denied that this genocide even happened for more than 100 years? Is it just forgetfulness? Or is there something more deliberate behind it? In this video, we're going to explore the Armenian Genocide, how it has been denied, and what this denial has meant for Armenians, Turkey, and the world. How does denying history affect the people who survived, their families, and even entire nations? And most importantly, what can we learn from it today? If you want to understand the truth behind hidden history and uncover stories that have been ignored or rewritten, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to History Untold. Join us as we uncover the truths history doesn't always want you to know. Armenians in the Ottoman Empire. Armenians have lived in Anatolia, what we now call Turkey, for thousands of years, long before the Turks arrived. For centuries, they were part of the Ottoman Empire, but life was not always fair. Under Islamic rule, Armenians and other non-Muslims were treated as second-class citizens. They had to pay special taxes and were often denied the same rights as Muslims. Even in the 19th century, when the Ottoman Empire tried to make reforms, called the Tanzimat, to create equality, Armenians still faced discrimination. By the 1890s, tensions had grown worse. Armenians were sometimes forced to convert to Islam, their lands were taken away, and violence against them increased. In response, some Armenians joined groups like the Armenian Revolutionary Federation, which fought for their rights. These tensions led to large-scale massacres. During the Hamidian massacres in the 1890s, at least 100,000 Armenians were killed. Later, in 1909, the Adana massacre claimed the lives of around 17,000 Armenians. During these attacks, the Ottoman authorities denied responsibility and instead blamed the Armenians. At the same time, they portrayed Muslims as the victims. These same tactics of blaming the victims and denying the truth would later be used during the Armenian Genocide. The rise of the Committee of Union and Progress, CUP. By the early 20th century, the Ottoman Empire was losing its lands, especially in Europe after the Balkan Wars. The empire was shrinking, and the ruling Committee of Union and Progress, CUPA, which took power through coups in 1908 and 1913, needed someone to blame. They blamed Christian minorities, including Armenians, for the empire's losses, claiming they were disloyal. At the same time, hundreds of thousands of Muslim refugees were fleeing the wars and were resettled in areas where many Armenians lived. This created tension and resentment toward the Christian communities. When World War I began in 1914, the Ottoman Empire joined Germany and Austria-Hungary. Armenians were falsely accused of helping Russia, one of the empire's enemies. The CUP used these accusations as an excuse to target Armenians. These growing fears, hatred, and false claims set the stage for what would become the Armenian Genocide, a tragic chapter in history that cannot be ignored. The Armenian Genocide. The Armenian Genocide began in 1915, following events that Ottoman leaders used as excuses. After a failed military campaign against Russia in Sarikamish, Armenians were falsely accused of treachery. The government removed Armenians from military positions, and any small acts of resistance were exaggerated and presented as a widespread rebellion. On April 24, 1915, Hundreds of Armenian intellectuals, leaders, and professionals were arrested in Constantinople. This day is often seen as the official start of the genocide. Soon after, Armenians were forcibly deported from their homes and sent on long marches toward the Syrian desert. Most were women, children, and the elderly, unarmed and unable to defend themselves. Along the way, they faced massacres, starvation, disease, and abuse. These deportations were controlled by the Special Organization, a paramilitary group tasked with overseeing the killings. By mid-1916, hundreds of thousands had died. By the end of World War I, only a small fraction of the Armenian population remained. Out of 1.5 to 2 million Armenians, between 800,000 and 1.2 million were deported and perished. Many survivors, especially women and children, were forced into Muslim households, either through marriage, adoption, or conversion. The state also confiscated the property of those who died, redistributing their land and wealth, leaving lasting scars on the Armenian community. Denial begins. Even while the genocide was happening, the Ottoman Empire denied what they were doing. Officials said Armenians were being resettled for military reasons, not killed. They blamed deaths on disease, bad weather, or local officials, avoiding responsibility for the mass killings. This early denial became the model for later decades. After World War I, many important documents proving the genocide were destroyed. The Ottoman government worked hard to cover up its actions, making it harder for survivors to tell their stories. When the Turkish Republic was established, this denial continued. The government presented the genocide as a necessary wartime measure. Over time, denial became a key part of Turkey's national identity. Admitting the truth would challenge how the modern state was built. For decades, Armenians and historians have fought for recognition, while denial has shaped education, politics, and international relations, leaving deep scars on memory and justice. Methods of denial. Armenian Genocide. Denial uses several methods to hide the truth. One way is to minimize the scale of the killings, claiming far fewer people died than actually did. Another tactic is to blame Armenians themselves, labeling them as rebels or traitors who brought disaster upon their own communities. Denial also shifts responsibility to others, like local Kurdish groups or so-called bandits, while refusing to acknowledge the state's role. Education has been a powerful tool for spreading denial. In Turkey, government-approved school textbooks describe Armenians as enemies, claim deportations were necessary, and downplay the state's responsibility. Students may even be asked to write essays denying the genocide, teaching them from a young age that this version of history is correct. Over generations, these lessons have normalized denial in society, making it part of national identity. This system has made it difficult for many to see the truth, and it continues to affect how history is remembered today. Denial in society and politics. Denial of the Armenian genocide is not just academic, it is deeply social and political. Most Turkish citizens support the government's official position, and polls show that fewer than 10% believe the genocide should be recognized. People who speak openly about it can face legal trouble, sometimes accused of insulting Turkishness. Politically, all major parties, except the pro-Kurdish HDP, maintain denial. The Turkish government has lobbied internationally, threatening sanctions or cutting diplomatic ties to prevent recognition. Even in the United States, Turkey spent millions of dollars lobbying for decades to stop governments from officially recognizing the genocide. International denial and complicity. Turkey's denial of the Armenian Genocide has shaped international politics for decades. Countries like Azerbaijan support this denial and lobby against recognition. In the 20th century, even Germany and the United States often accepted Turkey's version of events to maintain alliances. Universities, think tanks, and governments were sometimes influenced or funded to produce research that downplayed the genocide, creating a long-lasting information war. Today, Turkey still pressures countries, diplomats, and institutions that acknowledge the genocide. Despite these challenges, awareness continues to grow, thanks to the efforts of survivors' families, historians, and scholars committed to telling the truth. Denial in academia. Academic denial of the Armenian Genocide often takes the form of pseudo-scholarship. Some researchers selectively use sources, ignore evidence, or exaggerate claims that Armenians rebelled. Many denialist academics have ties to Turkish organizations or receive funding to promote Turkey's narrative. This has influenced textbooks, university courses, and public knowledge. Meanwhile, Turkish historians and activists who speak the truth face threats, censorship, and legal action. Despite these risks, a growing number of Turkish scholars like Taner Akşam have studied the genocide carefully, challenging denial and creating honest research that preserves history and supports education based on facts. Cultural erasure. Denial goes beyond books and politics. Armenian churches, monasteries, and monuments in Turkey were destroyed or looted. Place names were changed, mass graves erased, and survivors silenced. Generations grew up without learning the truth, as efforts to hide history aim to erase Armenian culture and the memory of the genocide. Consequences of denial. Denial has lasting effects that go far beyond the past. For Armenians, it causes ongoing pain, trauma, and a sense of injustice that never ends. For Turkey, it encourages nationalism built on lies and prevents honest discussion about past crimes. Denial also creates a dangerous example for how minority groups like Kurds and Alevis are treated. On a global level, denying genocide weakens trust in history and human rights. Recognizing the Armenian genocide is not about blaming people today. It is about facing the truth, honoring victims, preventing future atrocities, and working toward healing and reconciliation for all. Moving toward recognition. Over the years, many countries and organizations have officially recognized the Armenian genocide, including France, Germany, and most recently, the United States, under President Biden. Recognition gives families of survivors a chance to heal and helps the world learn the truth about history. It also challenges denial and strengthens global standards against genocide. In Turkey, brave scholars, journalists, and activists continue to speak the truth, even with risks. Social media and international networks now allow discussions that were once impossible. While denial is still strong, the movement toward acknowledgement is slowly growing, both in Turkey and around the world. Denying the Armenian genocide does not change history. It does not erase the suffering of over 1 million people or the destruction of entire communities. So, why do some still try to deny it? And what happens when we ignore the truth of the past? Facing history honestly is essential, not just for justice and healing, but for building a society that learns from its mistakes. Understanding the Armenian genocide, recognizing the ways it has been denied, and speaking openly about what happened is the first step toward justice and reconciliation. How can remembering the victims help us prevent future atrocities? Not just for Armenians, but for all humanity. How does acknowledging the truth make us stronger as a society? History can be painful and uncomfortable, but the truth cannot stay hidden forever. We must remember, question, and teach history as it really happened, not as some might try to rewrite it. If you believe in the power of truth and the importance of remembering history, make sure to like this video and subscribe to History Untold. Join us in uncovering the stories the world needs to know and making sure they are never forgotten.